I enjoy detective-style games, like the Ace Attorney and Hotel Dusk series, and I was looking forward to one that took itself more seriously, which is why it pains me to report that LA Noire is dreadfully boring half the time, while the other half is bewildering and infuriating. Team Bondi nailed the atmosphere and dialogue, but everything else about this game ranges from subpar to just plain bad. As the name suggests, the game takes place in 1947 Los Angeles. Young police officer Cole Phelps proves himself as a particularly capable deputy, getting himself promoted as a traffic detective onto homicide and beyond. With each promotion, more and more corruption reveals itself from within the police departments, straining Phelps' morality as he needs to balance truth and justice against the demands of his superiors.
You disappoint me, Cole Phelps. Get back in there and raise some lumps, boy! I need a confession!
LA Noire's greatest strength, as is Rockstar's usual fort, is its use of settings and characters. It's a lot of fun to just listen to these guys talk. I'm no expert in how authentic this is, but it does sound natural and believable. The city of Los Angeles is also massive and at least feels somewhat realistic. As far as virtual worlds go, it certainly takes a long time to get from one end to the other, and traffic is always busy. Rockstar is usually really good about creating these huge video game cities, and this interpretation of Los Angeles is no different. LA Noire's gameplay is split into 4 parts: searching for clues, interrogating suspects, driving, and combat. Searching for clues is pretty typical, and to be fair, there isn't a whole lot that can be done to make this better. You just walk around, wait for a magnifying glass to pop up, and then examine the object. Unfortunately, a lot of objects are useless and are just there to waste your time. What's worse is when you miss an important piece of evidence because you didn't examine a trivial item twice. This is only really bad for one of the clues towards the beginning of the game, but it still gave me a poor first impression. Even with all of those issues fixed, walking around places and hugging walls is still really slow and boring. The Ace Attorney series does it so much better since they're closer to traditional point-and-click games. And while they can still have their own hangups at times, it's still a lot faster to search an area and move on in comparison to LA Noire. It's also pretty strange that most of the clues here never seem to get used. They all paint an overall picture for the player to get a general idea of what's happening in the case, but it's not uncommon for half of the clues to go unused in the gameplay. Once you've gathered everything you need, it's time to question the suspects. Interrogations involve a list of predetermined questions for which you need to respond to the answers in one of 3 ways: play good cop, bad cop, or accuse them of lying and present corroborating evidence. The idea here is that the player is supposed to listen carefully to the suspect's tone of voice and their facial movements, determining if they're lying and deciding how best to approach the situation. Unfortunately, it never really works out that way, and interrogations come down to a guessing game more often than not. Here's a situation that will stump everybody when they first play the game.
Was your husband wearing his glasses when he left here yesterday?
Yes, he just bought a new pair.
Since Margaret claims that the glasses were brand new, and the glasses are described as both having been recently broken and repaired, it would stand to reason that there is at least somewhat of a contradiction here. So you accuse her of lying.
That's a lie, Margaret. You know exactly what pair he was wearing because you were there.
You're being flat out ridiculous now. Why don't you show me some proof of where I was supposed to be?
Well, that's a small stretch, but maybe I'm still supposed to present the glasses.
If I was there, at least I'd know what happened to him. But I don't, detective. And you might not care, but that is the most terrible feeling.
Nope, that was wrong. Welcome to LA Noire. Enjoy your stay because this is going to be the entire game. When you do get a line of questioning correct, it feels pretty good, and it's awesome to turn the tables on a suspect.
You're lying, Morgan. What happened to Adrian?
I have 10 guys who say I was here the whole night. You think you can prove I was there?
You signed your name and left it on the slaughterhouse receipt, Frank. We couldn't have you colder if we found you curled up in the back seat.
All right. I helped him. He wanted it to look like his car got hijacked. He's fallen for some dame up in Seattle, and now he's got to go start a new life with her. Goddamn fool.
But most of the time, you'll get made fun of and the suspect gets away with it, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I think you were in on it, Morgan. You drove down there, and you let Black have it.
Ooh, I'm a bad boy. That the best you got?
You're the police. What the hell is going on here? I will say that the facial animation looks extremely good. It's so easy to get used to garbage like Skyrim or most any other game with NPCs where everyone looks and talks like a robot. But LA Noire looks great, especially for a game from the previous generation. The facial animation is also designed to help the player deduce if a person is lying. And sometimes it's pretty obvious, if not unintentionally hilarious.
What exactly did you see them take?
They was working on the tires. That's all that was took.
Right. So what did you take, Jacobs? Do you want my partner to pat you down?
However, most of the time, it doesn't help in the slightest. I would try to look for a person's tells, as if this was a poker game, to clue me in to if someone is lying. But it appears to be so random. There's never any consistency. Speaking of the dialogue, it's also worth mentioning that the game is incredibly offensive and racist, going to such an extreme that it comes off as comedic.
Let's change the subject. You fasting for Yom Kippur, Mr. Kalu?
Yeah, let's change the subject, you going motherfucker. How about baseball?
You're not denying you're a Jew, Mr. Kalu.
This is America. It's not Germany. It's not a crime.
Some people don't like Jews, Mr. Kalu.
Yeah, and I guess you're one of them.
Gage hated Jews, didn't he, Mr. Kalu?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You left-wing leaning parasite. You expect me to sit here and listen to your drivel?
You call me that? You sit there and you call me those names, you goddamn goy putt snatcher. You and that stup Gage.
I actually like it quite a bit. The game doesn't pull any punches with how the characters act, but it never comes off as too over the top. It feels both fairly realistic and enjoyable. Driving around is exactly what it looks like. Some of the cars are extremely floaty and practically glide across the pavement, but it's still at least serviceable. You can use the handbrake to pull off some sweet drifting, and that's about it. There's not much to it here. A lot of objectives in this game tend to be on opposite sides of the city, which means there is a ton of driving to get through. It's pretty awful, however you can have the game skip this driving and just teleport you to where you need to go.
You can drive.
This is much better as some road trips can go on forever. But then what's the point? I would have much preferred a collection of smaller, well-designed areas as opposed to a massive city that I'm never going to bother with. There's also the occasional car chases, which are solved by your partner getting a shot on the tires or by ramming the opposing vehicle yourself. Again, not terrible, but nothing to write home about. If it wasn't for the driving, then the shootouts would be the blandest parts of the game. It's competent enough, but there's just nothing there. I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point. Enemies are totally non-threatening and they go down without a fight. Ducking in and out of cover is sluggish, and I'd much rather just walk up to people and blow them away. You do get different weapons to choose from, a pistol, shotgun, rifle, and machine gun, but none of them really matter, and the pistol is plenty good enough for every situation. Bare knuckle fights are just whatever. You can time a dodge and counterattack, but this is no punch-out. Everything about this game is so automatic, and it's like nothing the player does matters. Even if the interrogations go poorly, the story still continues regardless. There are times when the story branches very slightly, practically insignificantly, and it's like, what's the point? There's even a red herring at first where the game makes you feel bad for arresting the wrong guy. But guess what? All the suspects are the wrong guy. You catch the real criminal later on in the story. That can be a neat twist if it's pulled off well, but it feels unimpactful in this case because there isn't really any solid evidence for any of the suspects. There's no smoking gun, so the player gets a pretty good idea of what's going on, but they can't do anything about it.
Well, young Phelps, you win some and you lose some in police work.
You're happy with the Mueller case, sir?
Over the moon, boys! The DA couldn't be more pleased with the evidence, the witness, and the lack of an alibi. Now, get out there and catch me another sinner.
I'll give LA Noire credit in what it attempted to do. It's very well presented and most of the voice acting and animations are excellent. However, the game is so boring and there's no real challenge, mainly because it basically railroads the player to the end. Searching for clues is slow and uninteresting. Questioning suspects is basically a 50-50 shot if you get it right, but it never matters if you get anything wrong. And all of the actual gameplay is so bare bones. There's really nothing worth seeing here. Even the story itself suffers. The individual cases are okay, but each of them are very simple, while the larger, overarching narrative progresses so slowly and feel like it never gets anywhere. At least up until the last moments when everything starts to wrap up very quickly. I was really hoping to like this one, and at the very least, it is playable, but there's not much of a reason to play it. You would need to be a massive fan of the genre and absolutely desperate for something like it, but even then, it's hard to recommend.
What did you make of the kid? You believe her story?
I think she was doped out of her tiny mind and given the casting couch. That fucking bitch Ballard. Are you blind?
Thanks for watching my review on LA Noire.
So if Ballard was doing someone a favor, why did they try to...